So more scrolling game fixes and then the final project. So let's take a look at the first step of the final project. Now, a lot of people, programmers, I know a lot of programmers that do this. And what they do is before they really understand the whole problem, they start coding. I go, how can you start coding? You don't know what the goal of the game is. You don't know what you're trying to do. You don't even know the genre of the game you're trying to write a program for, and you already go to the compiler and start coding. Yeah, that's the basically the death knell for most projects. If you start coding too early, you really have to have a plan. There's an axiom in programming where they say failing to plan is like planning to fail. And I hear that every once in a while in industry, and when I'm talking to other programmers, and they all agree, or most of them agree, that that's the case. Yeah, you have to have a plan up front if you're going to do something meaningful and large. So we need to come up with a plan, each one of us, for our final game. So let's take a look at that project. I think this links us to our module. So we're going to have to write something called a design document. A lot of people think what programmers do all day is they program. And that's only half the story, really. The other half of the story is you're writing documents, technical documents about the program that you're either going to be building or currently building, or test plans or requirement specifications. When I was in industry as a programmer, I was an expert at this kind of stuff. And so they would put me in charge of whole projects because I could keep all this stuff organized. And they had me write the design documents. Basically, I would direct all the other programmers on which way to go because I was doing the design. So so this design document, I went over this last time, but just to go over it again, reiterate, you get to create your own 2D game. You want to make a school appropriate game, so games like Kill the Teacher, not a good choice. for a school-based game. Keep in mind, you must get it done by the end of the term. Now, a lot of people, when they start their first game, and I'll just be really honest, they bite off more than they can chew. They say, well, I'm going to make this game where you have these spaceships and they shoot from all different directions, and then there's monsters. Yeah. We've got a month. Okay. So I would be really cautious about the type of game you're going to create. Now, if you've been programming for a while and you want to do something a little bit more ambitious, yeah, that's okay. But if you're kind of new at this, I would be really cautious here. In fact, I'm going to make a huge concession here, okay? And this is my huge concession, and that is, you can take one of the games we've already done and enhance it as your final game. Yeah. Now, normally I don't do that, okay? But if you're not a huge experienced programmer, I'm going to say, well, you could take the chase game and just make it more of a game, add more monsters, add more things you can pick up, add walls you have to run around, add something, to the game to make it more fun and playable, make it into a real game. If you wanted to do that, you could do that. Another thing you could do is you take our next game. That would be a little bit more fun. The breakout game. Say you have special blocks that if you hit them, maybe you get 2 balls instead of 1 to bounce around. Or maybe some blocks are special because they give you a certain power up. Maybe you can move faster, or maybe your paddle gets larger or something like that. You could do that enhancement to the game. So you would add a timed power up that would last for a while and then it would go away. That's an opportunity that you can do that. So you could think of a lot of things for the breakout game that you could do to enhance it and make it more fun to play. Here in our scrolling game, you could make it really cool. In fact, you could do different types of enemies. I've already seen people making a spaceship game out of it. Instead of monsters walking towards you, you're in a spaceship and the spaceships are coming at you and they're shooting at you, or maybe there's planes or something like that. But you'd have to add a little bit more than what we did in our code. You'd have to say, okay, maybe there's certain types of planes that shoot bullets at you rather than just straight down, or bullets that follow you, heat-seeking bullets or something. But you would need to make a significant enhancement to any of the games that we've already done to count that as your final game. But you have to describe that here in your document, your final document. I prefer that you come up with your own idea, but again, maybe stick with the genres we have. What kind of genres do we have so far? Well, we have kind of an arcade game, right? You know, you just run around, something chases you, try to collect stuff. Yeah, it's kind of arcadey, I guess. And then we have Breakout, which is an arcade game, right? This game used to be in the old video game arcades. I know, I was in high school when they were there, and I would go there and I'd eat really bad sandwiches and play video games all day long. That's what first got me interested in programming, and probably for a lot of you that maybe playing video games at home got you interested as well. Yeah, so Breakout's more of an arcade-like game. The scrolling game is a little bit more advanced. It's kind of arcade-like, but I think it would be really hard to do, though. You know, I was wondering if you could make kind of like a Zelda-like game where you walk around, or like Animal Crossing or something, where you walk around and the scene changes around behind you. You have a bigger space, but you can only see a certain part of it. So that would take a long time. So I wouldn't recommend that. But you can see how you might enhance the game so that, you know, you stay in the middle and everything moves around you, kind of like Animal Crossing, unless you're at the edge, you know, and then it doesn't do that. So that would be really difficult, right? So I wouldn't recommend that. Another game that you might think of doing is, that's pretty straightforward, is a tower defense game. Say you're trying to protect the tower from zombies, and usually it's the attack of the stick people, and they're coming at you and you have to defend. You shoot something at them and they fall over and stuff. And then if they get to your building, then they start damaging it until it's too damaged, and then you lose. Yeah, so the tower defense game is pretty straightforward if you want to try that. Or another straightforward game is be like Asteroids, right? You've seen that game where you have these asteroids flying around, and when the asteroids fly off the side of the screen, they come back on the other side. So the whole screen wraps top, bottom, left, right. And you shoot all the asteroids, and they break into smaller asteroids, and then you shoot those asteroids, and they break into even smaller asteroids, and then you shoot them, and then they disappear. And you keep score. And there could be a spaceship shooting at you every once in a while. You know, Asteroids is a pretty good game to maybe cut your teeth on a little bit. Your ship as well also wraps around the screen. Every time you go off screen, you come back on the other side. So those are some options, you know, for the final game. Because we're in this distance learning kind of environment during the pandemic, you know, I'm not going to ask for too much, but I am going to ask for something, and that's going to be either an enhancement to a game we've already done that's relatively significant, or even better, come up with your own game starting from scratch. However, realize we only have a month, so you have to gauge how ambitious you're going to be, and you also have to look at your other classes, see how much time you have, because there's that. But I'm going to let you choose the difficulty. This is very odd, but teachers don't really usually do this. If you feel like you're just not a good programmer, I would take the chase game and enhance it. Do something to it to make it better. If you're a little bit more confident, well, maybe I'll do the breakout game and put some new tiles in it, and maybe some super power-ups or something. Or if you're super confident, maybe you take our scrolling game and you add lots of different types of monsters and power-ups and things. And then if you're an Uber programmer already, maybe you create your own game from scratch. Maybe one of the games I talked about, like Asteroids, or what was the other one? Asteroids, and well, the other one I talked about. Good thing I'm recording this. I can play it back. Now, there was a recording made of yesterday's discussion, so if you wanted to fix those things in the scrolling game, and I went by it too fast, there is a video out there, and I'll show you where that is in a second. But those are your choices for the final game. Again, I'm just opening it up so that a garbage Galaga clone in JavaScript a few years back. Yeah, you could try to resurrect that. I always like that scene in The Winter Soldier where you see over the guy's shoulder on the big ship, and he's playing Galaga. That's funny. I kind of like that scene for old guys like me who used to play Galaga a lot at the arcade. All right, so what does the document need in it? Really not a lot. Usually when you do a design document, there's hundreds of pages long, but these are not. You know, you just say the name of the game, the plot, the theme, have a little backstory, maybe the main character is this, and you tell them about a little bit about the character. What will the controls be? Are you going to use WASD or arrow keys, or maybe use your mouse? I would shy away from that. But if you wanted to, and you really wanted to work, you could try to get a mouse control game, although I wouldn't recommend it. What will the controls be? Create the picture that shows you a rough layout of the game. So just draw a picture, even in Paint, and slap it in your document somewhere, and make it, just so I get an idea of what you're trying to create. And then what features that must be done for your game? What are the additional features you would do if you had time? Well, certainly we've talked about what a game really is. It has to have a point. It has to be able to kind of win and lose, I guess. When you play a game, you're either conserving resources like health, or you're gathering resources like I don't know, crystals and StarCraft. You're doing something, okay? You've got to have some kind of thing. You're trying to accumulate points, or you're trying to gather a certain amount of material or something like that, and you're keeping score. So there's some kind of score involved. Sometimes you don't need a score. You just make it to the end and you win. So maybe score isn't entirely important, but that's usually in a game. Lives are also something you should consider. You want to make it a game. Now, if it's just an animation where people jump around on the screen and stuff, and there's no real user control, that's not a game. That's a video, right? Say you can't control a character, but there's no point in the control because there's nothing to get. There's no points to score, and you don't win. That's not a game either. Okay, so you got to think of something that's actually a game. If you want to make it an animation, maybe you do that in Mr. Ballas's class, or maybe in an art class. But here, yeah, we got to make it into some kind of game. So see if you can come up with that document. Again, the due date on this is, let's see, it's due on the 10th, so that's this weekend. But you have until the 17th to get that in, and I won't count it late. But the longer you wait to write the game or figure out what type of game you're doing, the days you're wasting of coding time. You're going to need that coding time, whichever level of coding you're doing. You're going to need that time because you'll underestimate. There's another axiom in programming that I heard a lot, and it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it goes like this: a poorly planned project will take 3 times the amount of time allotted to complete. A carefully planned project will only take twice as long. Okay, so even if you're careful in your scheduling and you're trying to say, oh, I can make that in a couple, I don't know, I can do that in a month. Double that, okay? Always double that. Programmers are eternally optimistic people. They think they can solve all the problems. They can do things in super speed. And once you get down into the details, you realize, oh, geez, I didn't think about that. And I didn't think about that. And oh my gosh, I'm doomed, okay? So whatever you think you have a month, okay? You don't have a month. Or you say, I got a month. I could do this in a month, cut that in half, and that's what you're going to really be able to do, okay? Don't be overly optimistic. Now, usually you don't hear teachers say that. They usually say, do as much as you can, do your best, all this kind of stuff. And you want to do your best and all that, but you want to be conservative of what you're trying to do, okay? We're all new at this, most of us, right? So, yeah, be really cautious about how big a plate of food you grab. Don't let your eyes get bigger than your stomach. You do have to have something that compiles and runs. The first thing is it's got to compile and it's got to run. What's the third thing? It's got to be a game. Okay. That's about it. Okay. I'm going to keep it pretty loose on what I'll accept for a final project. Now, usually I'm more of a stick in the mud, and I want to see a lot more work. But again, we're in a kind of a weird situation. I just want to get you some experience writing a game from start to end, and giving it to someone to play so that you can see how they enjoy it. That's always fun. And you learn about programming too while you're doing it. All right. So that's the final project. Any questions there before we move on? It's quiet. Watching the chat. All right. So let's take a look then at our daily plan then. And I will show you where the video is. We're in, yeah, no, not here. We were on our daily plan. That's what I call it, my daily plan. No one else calls it that but me. So we fixed the run out of enemy problem. We fixed the enemies aren't being destroyed at the bottom of the screen. We didn't fix that one. We just redefined how enemies get recycled, right? They go back up to the top of the screen when they go off the bottom. So you get a lot of enemies. And then sprites and backgrounds cover up the question boxes. I still haven't figured that one out. Still working on it. I'll work on it over the weekend for sure. And then the avatar can move outside the game window. That's the one I wanted to solve last time. And I tried. You remember I tried during class and kind of fell on my head. Yeah, because this game engine's got some problems. Okay, so we've got to figure out what that is. But the right here is the video to yesterday's discussion. So if you wanted to go back and give that a try and get that typed in, you can do that, and then the game will work a little bit better when it comes to running out of enemies or enemies. Not enough enemies are making the game challenging. So anyway, there's a video about that. It's not a video of the class. I tried to do that, but the class is too long. The video chunked, so I had to make another video. So I made another video. It's out on YouTube, and you can get to it, hopefully. If you can't, let me know, and that would be great. Other thing. Okay, so let's look at, I'm going to put today's video, today's class right here once I have process it and send it to YouTube. It takes a little while to get all set up, but once it's there, sometime this afternoon, that'll be available too if you want to try to implement some of these things. Or you could try to do it as we go along today. All right, so I'm in my scrolling game, right? So I better switch over to my scrolling game. Let me do that. This is scrolling game 2. A lot of you had a lot of good ideas in your scrolling game, so just like any good programmer, I borrowed your code without asking you. That's bad. No, you had some good ideas. So I wanted to use some of those. Okay, so right now I don't have any enemies, right? Enemies are a little bit annoying when you're trying to get your screen, your little character to stay on screen. So I've temporarily disabled the loop. Oh, am I sharing my screen? Yeah. So I temporarily disabled my loop that creates the enemies. And so I'm walking around and I've got it so now I'm forced to stay on the screen. Okay. Still not very consistent. My margins are a little bit wide on the edges. It'd be nice if I had a good margin, but I can't walk outside the room. Okay. And that makes this game really hard. Once I turn the enemies back on, then yeah, you have more of a challenge because you can't just walk outside the level and not hit any monsters. You're constrained to the room, which is normal, like most games, right? Excuse me. So, what did I do in the code to actually make this work? Well, I thought the first thing I'd have to do, the only thing I'd have to do really, was in the key press event. Excuse me, I've just been talking all day. Had a meeting with Principal Nislanik early this morning. We talked for about an hour. And then I had another class, and then this class, my poor throat. So here's the key press event, all right? This was my original plan, right? You go and figure out which direction they're going, and then you got to see whether you're near the border or the edge of the screen. So if the x coordinate of the avatar is greater than 32, then yeah, they can move that way. Go ahead and let them. And so you do. Otherwise, you set the speed to 0, okay? But I found, and then you have to call calculate move because that does some fancy things to set the speed, right? If you have 2 keys down at the same time, so you can move diagonally and stuff. But I found that this didn't work. Every once in a while, the game loop, is doing fine. It's checking every time it gets a key press. It checks to see if you're still on screen. If you are, it lets you move left. If not, it stops you. But then every once in a while, the game loop stops looping behind the scenes, and you can go 30, 45, 70 pixels off screen before it notices that, hey, before it does this check again, okay? So there's something wrong in the game loop where when keys are being pressed, they're not being noticed right away. They're kind of every once in a while being ignored. And we've had this problem ever since day one, right? You'd press the key and you'd have to wait a little bit and then it would start moving. Have you noticed that? I don't know. I noticed that like on the first day. I'm going, is it the key repeat or is it something wrong with the keyboard? But every once in a while you press and it goes the first time. And other times you press. Yeah, and breakout game. Yeah. I noticed it there. You'd press and you'd wait, and then the paddle would move. And by that time, the ball's by you. And you're going, well, that's not very good. So this isn't enough. And you still need to do this to stop in the right place. But I found that this wasn't sufficient, okay? Now, what I did, just to complete what I did here, this is what you normally do to keep a character in the space. You check the left side, right, which is greater than 32. You check the right side. If you're going right, it's the game width minus 32 minus 4. That seemed a little excessive, but you could probably take that minus 32 out. But it doesn't let you go all the way to the edge of the screen, and it's supposed to keep you in the room. Set HP to 0. If you're already all the way right and you want to go further right, then you can't, and then it'll set the speed to 0 and it'll stop you from moving right. As long as this is being called every loop, but it's not. Okay, something's up with the game loop. So I'm going to try to sort that out this weekend. Up is the same way. Y, remember, Y is upside down. So if it's greater than 32, that means you're further down the screen. So you can move up. But if you're right up to the top of the screen already, then it sets the V speed to 0. You can't move up anymore. Same thing with down. It's the game height minus 32. So you're trying to keep that character within 32 pixels of the edge of the screen. And typically in most games loops, this works, okay? This idea works where you try to keep it in the room, but not in this game loop. This wasn't an often enough test because it was dropping key presses, right? So you could move off screen before it would ever look here to see whether it was supposed to stop. So I had to find a more centralized location to also check to keep the character in the room. And so I know this sounds terrible, but the only place I could think of that had that much control at the point I needed that control was this thing. Remember Update Objects? Update Objects is a monster, okay? It's way too much code. If I had a chance to remake the videos, I would break this into about 4 or 5 different functions, and then I would put all of them in one place, and then you could kind of get an idea of what's going on. But here, oh my gosh, he's doing trigonometry and then trying to figure out if two things collide, and then we're trying to see about alarms, and then we got these class tags that we have to figure out what to do when they do certain things. Update Objects got way too much stuff in it, okay? And so I'm going to make it even worse because I know Update Objects updates all the objects, and that's a really good centralized location to change all this stuff. So, or to keep track of the enemy. So first thing I do, the first thing I do is I first check to see if it's an enemy, or not an enemy, but an avatar, right here. Because, well, the problem is avatar doesn't have a class tag, right? So I had to add that first up here. So when I create the avatar here, the little explorer guy, avatar, I set this new class tag called avatar. Why did I do that? Because that's what I need, that class tag to tell me what kind of object I have inside Update Objects, right? I got to say, okay, are you an avatar? I'm asking, is this object that I'm currently trying to process an avatar? You are? Okay, so I'm going to double check to see if you're on screen. If your X coordinate is less than 32 or your X coordinate is greater than the game width minus 32, the other side of the screen, then set the speed to 0 and calculate move. Now, this is not ideal, right? This is a kludge. What is a kludge? Anybody know what a kludge is? It's kind of a funny word. Programmers use it. I don't think anyone else does, but yeah, I don't like this code. It's kludgy. What does that mean? Is you're papering over a Band-Aid. You don't. What I really need to do is fix the game loop so it doesn't miss key presses. But I didn't write the game loop, and so I don't know exactly how how the underlying structure works. So I have to do this kind of Band-Aid fix where I say, okay, if I can't keep track of the X coordinate of the avatar in the key press event, I'm going to have to do it here in the update objects event because I know this is being called all the time. And so I check, am I too close to the left or too close to the right side? If I am, 0. Just stop all movement. Regardless of what the key press is, it's going to stop it. You can't go any further. Same thing here with the vertical directions. If the Y coordinate is less than 32 or the Y coordinate is greater than game height minus 32, then stop it from moving vertically, okay? And then calculate move. That's what actually sets the speed. So kludge, okay, big kludge here. I'm trying to cover over a Band-Aid. I dislike programming like this, okay? So, but sometimes you're forced into it, right? I'm forced into it because the game engine is limited, okay? So I've come up with another solution. So this, in combination with the other thing I mentioned, which was the key inside the key press event, the stuff that normally works but didn't work this time. Let's find it. There's key release, key press. So this type of coding. I had it, but now it disappeared again. Yeah, here where you test each one and then you check to see if it's too close to the edge, and if it is, stop, and if it isn't, then you can go. You have to have that in there too, I think. I mean, I didn't try it where you just don't do this code and just rely on the other code. Maybe that would work too. So maybe try that. Do the second thing first to see if that solves the problem. And then we go from there. The classes are still being uploaded to YouTube, right? Yeah, I'm going to upload this one so that you can see this code if you want to fix it. Again, these are all optional things. You can do your scrolling game. If you're not finished with the scrolling game, you can do the things that you're supposed to do first. These are just things for people who are frustrated by the scrolling game's goofiness or kind of glitchiness, how to make it more into a game. And so now if I go up and if I go and change it so that I generate those enemies here, I set total events to, where's my total events? Yeah, I set it to 0. And I think the total events is how many monsters you have. So I said, now I'm going to do 40 now, 40 monsters. And now I run the game and let's see how hard it is to play. I don't think I'll do very good. So as I start out, you can see more and more monsters coming in. And no matter what I do, see, that's hard. Okay, so the game is markedly more difficult, okay? Well, I didn't really show what I wanted to show is I can't go outside the room, right? I'm stuck over here. I can't get out. I can't go below. Oh, I can't get too close to the top because I won't have time to respawn. So I'm going to start spamming balls and see if I can get over the other side of the ball, other side of the screen. Yeah, so now the game's a lot harder, right? But again, it's a game now, right? We've got a score. We've got lives. There's a point to it. How do you win? Well, you can put a count on all the monsters, and then you can say, if I kill all the monsters, even the ones that get recycled, then I win. You can count it that way, or maybe you play until your goal is to get as many points as possible. That's another way to do it. All right, so that's what I would do if you wanted to keep the player in the room, which I would recommend doing if you've got the project done. Yeah, do that, and then the next thing to do would be the design document for your final game. All right, any questions on this? Probably a lot. Okay, well, all right, on that, I'll let you go. But again, I would really like you to get your design documents for your final game written this weekend. The longer you wait, the less time you'll have to code it. So I would do it as soon as you can, even before you finish this scrolling game. maybe just jot down what you're going to be doing for your final game. And again, remember, you got choices. You can use one of the previous games and enhance them, or you can come up with a new one, just in a nutshell. All right, I'll let you go. Thanks for showing up today. I'm going to go try to figure out why the gas is leaking in my little place here and whether or not it's going to blow up anytime soon. The joys of teaching. See you, everyone. Have a good rest of the day. All right. Bye-bye.